Drake beef. Kendrick didn't pull out some wild new persona here. He showed up as himself, but sharper, louder, and with zero patience left. Starting with that verse on Like That. Back in March, the gloves came off. No aliases, no characters, just a colder, more calculated version of Kendrick, who wasn't interested in playful jabs or coded lyrics. That verse felt like he'd been waiting, sharpening the blade for years. It was clear he was done pretending the tension didn't exist. Then Euphoria dropped. And man, that wasn't a track. It was a long, unfiltered rant, dressed up in haunting samples and slick production. He dragged Drake from every angle. His identity, his credibility, his online presence. Kendrick's tone here wasn't even angry. It was confident. Like he already knew how this would end. It was personal, it was layered, and it didn't care about being polite or cryptic.
The most violent warning shot in rap history.
The way he used his voice, flipping between calm and chaotic, felt like he was turning the screws on purpose. Next came 616 in Los Angeles, another hit, but it wasn't even on streaming platforms at first. It popped up on Instagram like it had been slipped under the door. This time, Kendrick came after the entire OVO circle, calling them snakes and spies. He took shots at online personalities and used that eerie beat to make everything feel a little too real. It was surgical, not just yelling to make noise, but calculated enough to make Drake's next move feel forced. But that was nothing compared to Meet the Grams. Kendrick went off script, addressing Drake's entire family like he was writing a series of open letters. It wasn't just beef, it felt like a trial. He accused, exposed, and dissected, bar by bar. He didn't hide behind metaphors or characters here either. It was raw storytelling, plain and brutal. And less than one day later, Not Like Us came flying in, with Mustard behind the beat. The chorus, infectious.
It's just so crazy that Mustard had no idea what Dot was going to do with Not Like Us, and neither did Alchemist. And neither did Alchemist. I remember they asked him on Twitter, they were like, did you know he was going to do that with that beat? No. No, I didn't.
The content, absolutely ruthless. Kendrick wasn't trying to play fair. He blasted Drake's reputation, his influence, his connections, everything, and somehow made it catchy enough to dominate charts and sweep up trophies. Then came the twist, GNX. After all that heat, Kendrick dropped an album that wasn't a diss project at all. This wasn't about Drake anymore. It was about Kendrick, his roots, and what happens after war. It's a narrative-driven record, but that fire never really left. On Reincarnated, he painted himself as Lucifer, debating God. It's metaphorical, but it still landed like a gut punch. It felt like Kendrick was asking himself if he'd sell out like the greats before him or hold on to his integrity.
I like how that sample's Pac made. I think it's made. I can't think of the record off the top of my head, but I think it's made in words. And I think GNX is going to be a favorite to win multiple Grammys this year. I think it was already submitted, so expect another Kendrick sweep.
That question ran through the whole album like a current. Critics called GNX a monument to ego. And honestly, they weren't wrong. But it wasn't ego for ego's sake. It was Kendrick laying out his ambition and pride like a blueprint. He wasn't just flexing. He was setting the record straight on who he is, where he stands, and who gets left behind. Then whacked out murals slid in, with Kendrick tossing straight shots at other big names without losing his poetic touch. It was aggressive but refined, loud but intentional. The line about Lil Wayne didn't just sting, it lingered, and calling out J. Cole straight up, no filter, no apology. By the time Heart Part 6 rolled around, the energy changed. It was reflective, almost peaceful, like Kendrick had made his point and was now looking back. He shouted out his early days, his team, his roots. It wasn't soft, it was grounded. He reclaimed a part of his identity Drake tried to grab, and he did it with grace and power. But Squabble Up brought it full circle.
I noticed that, and this is the point that What's the Dirt made, and maybe if you're watching this as a Kendrick Lamar fan, you can see if he has any point by this. But he was saying that the 3 diss records that were uploaded to streaming services, Not Like Us, Euphoria, and if it wasn't 616, there's 3 records that were they were Interscope releases, right? And this album in particular was a PG Lang. It wasn't Interscope. He's saying that he feels the beef was orchestrated contractually, and that's what Drake is trying to expose in court as well, that this was all a play and the leverage, because with Drake being signed, I guess like the person that was handling the side of Universal's contracts on the East Coast, and I think that his name starts with a J. I think his name's John. He was looking for a promotion. He was already trying to level up, and with Drake really being the quote-unquote cash cow, the person that signed Dot, or Dot was under, was looking for a promotion. So for him to get a promotion, what better way than to boost his clientele in a quote unquote fake rap beef? I don't believe it, but if you've heard the theory and you think there's any sort of plausibility to it, you let me know in the comment box down below. But he was saying that like those three were heavily leveraged by UMG to beat Drake. But if Drake is the cash cow, what would you benefit as UMG to orchestrate someone that you deem is not the cash cow and Kendrick Lamar to take down Drake? Even with contractual obligations, and he's in the middle of contractual obligations, and you're like, you've undermined me. Drake is saying you've undermined me in this beef to slight me and lower my value. He was still going to get a big check anyways. And then you can see that after the beef that they're saying time and time again, UMG that is trying to salvage a relationship with Drake. So I don't know how credible that is. And I'm going to say this again. I'm going to let the video play, I promise. If Drake is as present he is year after year and is the cash cow and is quote unquote better economically for hip hop in terms of financially and what he does for the ecosystem, because Kendrick Lamar takes breaks in between albums to recharge, live life so that he can give you some life in a perspective in a great body of work. Are we going to be quote unquote dethrone the king of hip hop, behead him for someone that isn't as present release wise? I don't know. You answer that. Let me know.
Was upbeat, rooted in West Coast style, but still wild enough to remind you Kendrick can bend genres without losing bite. It felt more like a celebration than a fight, like he'd closed the chapter on the beef and was dancing on the ashes. That's the kind of transformation that stood out most in this era. Kendrick didn't become someone else. He just turned the volume up on who he already was, from the sharp, icy tone of Like That to the cultural pride of Squabble Up. This phase wasn't about characters, it was about clarity. Kendrick showed how layered one artist can be without hiding behind masks. The defense, the metaphors, the musical choices, they all pointed back to a single truth. Sometimes being yourself is the most powerful move you can make. Mr. Morale. Kendrick didn't wrap this persona in a flashy costume or catchy nickname. This version of him came stripped down, layered in therapy sessions and emotional bruises. He used Mr. Morale to face himself in real time.
I will admit that I didn't get the album release. It wasn't the timing. Music is all about timing when it comes out. For me, that was the album that did the least for me because I wasn't there yet in my point in my life. But I understand how impactful it was for the culture, and it was able to set him up to really even unleash the wrath that he gave Drake in the form of a rap ass whooping. Was the changes. I don't think he can go through Mr. Morale in this therapy and working on himself and say lines like, if he didn't go to therapy, I don't think he'd be able to say lines like, therapy is a lovely start, but I recommend ayahuasca, strip the ego from the bottom. It's such a cold ass line. That's cold.
Not to entertain, but to process. The guy on this album isn't Kung Fu Kenny, isn't K. Dot, and definitely isn't trying to be anyone's hero. He's in therapy, peeling back ego, guilt, and generational mess, like old wallpaper. The album's structure says it all. Two halves, Big Steppers and Mr. Morale, split like a mirror cracked down the middle. On one side, it's outward pressure, public image, performance, the curated self. On the other, it's internal friction, the voices in his head, childhood wounds, spiritual confusion. It starts with Whitney Alford offering calm but firm grounding. And by the time Eckhart Tolle steps in, Kendrick's already knee-deep in self-doubt and soul-searching. He doesn't dodge hard topic. Fatherhood isn't a prop here. It's a pressure point. Infidelity isn't glamorized.
Them kids don't belong to Day Free. He wrong for that.
It's confessed. Mother I Sober might be the rawest Kendrick track ever, and that's saying something. It's just piano, voice, and pain. You hear his daughter, hear Beth Gibbons ghosting through the chorus, and it all swells into something that doesn't even feel like a song anymore. It's more like a breaking point. Then there's Anti-Diaries. Kendrick walks through his childhood ignorant, like he's reading pages from a diary he's not proud of. It's uncomfortable, and that's the point. He stumbles over misgendering, pushes boundaries, and lands on something real. How love and religion and ignorance can crash into each other when no one's willing to listen. We Cry Together plays out like a short film recorded live. It's ugly, loud, and tense. It's also painfully human. He's not romanticizing dysfunction here. He's dissecting it. There's no resolution, just two people yelling past each other, dragging all their trauma into one room with no escape hatch. That's what makes Mr. Morale so different. He's not rapping from the top of the mountain. He's in the valley, dragging himself through the mud. The persona is flawed on purpose. He's still poetic, still calculated, but there's mess in every verse. Not stylistic mess, emotional mess. It's intentional.
Do you feel like if if Cole participated in that, he would have offered a better challenge than Drake did? And if it's yes or no, depending on that, what about, you may already answer this. This may already be a no for you if you're watching this. Had Big Sean, I like Big Sean's pen, but I'm not gonna say that he was going to be a lyrical threat or a war type threat to Kendrick. But when he had sent those shot, I think it was Element, that it was initially like the first reference was a Big Sean diss. And if that never got cleared up and they never reached out to each other and it became a full-on beef, do you think that Big Sean's performance would have been worse than Drake's or better? Let me know.
Doesn't want to be perfect. He wants to be honest. He says it flat out. I'm not your savior. That line hits like a brick. Fans who came looking for a prophet got handed a therapy transcript. He made the decision to pull back from idol status, showing how damaging it can be to put artists on pedestals they didn't ask for. Mr. Morale doesn't want applause. He wants to be understood, or at least heard. The reception matched the complexity. Some listeners were blown away by the emotional gravity. Others got stuck on the contradictions, like Kendrick featuring Kodak Black while talking about accountability and abuse.
Oh, they hated that that Kodak was all over a Kendrick Lamar album. Oh, they hated it. They couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand it.
That tension wasn't an oversight. It was baked in. Mr. Morale isn't here to deliver clean answers. He's here to hold up a mirror and let it shake. The album topped charts, scooped up the Grammy for Best Rap Album, and kicked off conversations that had way more depth than a typical release. Kendrick knew what he was doing. He didn't make this to go viral. He made it because it had to come out. The pain, the doubt, the frustration, it was clogging the pipes. And this album was how he cleared it. And the split structure, that wasn't just a creative gimmick. The whole thing was mapped like a therapy session stretched across track. The first half is full of posturing and contradiction. The second half peels away those layers. Mr. Morale isn't one consistent voice. He's shifting, evolving, arguing with himself.
And I remember his tour on Amazon, or was it Amazon Live? When he had the crown and he was bleeding. I remember a lot of people took offense with that and they called it blasphemous. But it's performance art, and I thought that the message was loud and clear.
Persona isn't complete without the contrast. This version of Kendrick doesn't offer closure. He offers context. He's a father, a partner, a survivor, a skeptic, a critic, and most of all, a man who refuses to pretend he's healed when he's still hurting. He's not fixing everything in one album. He's naming the pain, and that's the step he's on. Mr. Morale represents a giant pivot in Kendrick's artistic journey. It's not clean, it's not smooth, and it's definitely not pretty, but it's important. This persona throws away the cape and puts on the weight. No savior, no superhero, just a man with a mic and a lot to unload.
Stop tap dancing around the subject. The tap dancing was a great. Even though that album wasn't necessarily one of my favorites, I liked the theme of the tap dancing, the therapy, the Eckhart Tolle, Whitney voicing a lot of the "you need to get some therapy," and then him saying "I'm not your savior." Tupac's dead. Gotta think for yourself. It has a very good message to it. Just sonically, I wasn't ready for it at the moment. I'm gonna go back to it though.
By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Oklama. This persona wasn't built to entertain or shock. It was meant to mark a shift. Kendrick first signed off as Oklama in August of 2021 when he announced his final album under Top Dog Entertainment. That alone set a tone. It was more than just a goodbye. It was a pivot into something new. He kept the message minimal, reflective, and quietly loaded with meaning. No press tour, no bombastic branding. Just a lowercase alias and a declaration that there's beauty in completion. On the surface, Oklama showed up as the executive producer credit for Mr. Morale and The Big Step, but calling it just a production tag misses the point. Oklama was the architect, the lens, the signature under the blueprint. This wasn't Kendrick putting on a character, it was him stepping into the role of translator, taking his internal process and turning it into a communal offering. He didn't just rap as Oklama, he created through it. Some fans have tried decoding the name. OK for OK, LA for Los Angeles, MA for mother. The idea being that those three elements, wellness, hometown, and maternal influence, ground Kendrick's identity. Others think there's a sly nod to Barack Obama in there, maybe as a reflection of Kendrick's interest in leadership, symbolism, and black excellence. but Kendrick never confirmed anything, and that silence fits the persona. Oklama doesn't overshare. He lets the art carry the message, and in Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, that message was layered. This persona wasn't just crafting the album, it was organizing the chaos. Kendrick moved from outward performance to inward reflection, and Oklama was the one holding the frame steady. You can feel it in the sequencing, in the production choices, in the shift from Whitney Alford's voice to Eckhart Tolle's. It's Kendrick using Oklama to guide us, almost like a narrator standing just off stage.
So which one is the persona that's on Family Ties, and which one is on Hillbillies? Like, I don't know if you're gonna give like the Compton cowboy persona, and you're gonna give like, I'm scary, I got a bomb in this, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know, burn that hard drive, you know what I mean? Smoking on top 5, and I want to know exactly if he's gonna delve into that.
Then there's the deeper meaning. Some thinkers have compared Oklama to figures like Sun Ra, not in sound, but in spirit. Like Ra, Kendrick uses this persona to blend worlds, high and low, formal and informal, intellectual and emotional. Oklama isn't flashy, he's meditative, a cultural interpreter, someone who recognizes that artistry and community aren't separate, and that self-expression can be collective. That idea shows up clearly in The Heart Part 5, when the song opens with I am, all of us. It's not just a slogan, it's the manifesto. Visually, Kendrick started rolling out the name in performances and credits. In the Family Ties video with Baby Keem,
Okay, alright, maybe he's gonna answer it right now.
Name Oklama appears as part of his creative identity, showing that this persona isn't confined to one album. It's part of the larger direction Kendrick's headed. He's not trying to repeat past formulas. He's stepping into something broader, more philosophical. This persona works because it's understated. There's no superhero outfit, no grand mythology. It's just a quiet signal that the man behind the mic is evolving again. Oklama doesn't ask for praise, he asks for reflection.
I'm not gonna lie, that spiritual ass whooping, I completely forgot this persona that he has, Oklama, because that spiritual ass whooping that he delivered upon to Drake, I forgot all about Oklama. I really did. It just felt like 1,000 fists. It felt, you know, Goro from Mortal Kombat. You know, Goro. It just felt like it just felt like he had 7 arms whooping on Drake's ass. Like, is this the same whooping on his ass? Is this 1v1? Don't feel like it. It felt like Drake getting jumped because it just felt like a fury of fist. That's what it felt like. It just felt like, I'll take this analogy from my friend from the Rap Rankings podcast, Melvin Birch. It felt like one hand was squeezing on Drake's head, like his whole cabeza had his whole head, right? And the other hand, he had another hand free for whatever reason, and he just dumping cold water on him. He said, you can't fall asleep. You can't fall asleep. You know what I mean? And I gave this analogy for being surgical in the way that Pusha T was. It really felt like a surgical performance, and that, you know how you sedate somebody? Well, the sedation wore off mid-surgery when it came to Drake running into Pusha T and Kendrick Lamar. It felt like they wanted him to be awake for this punishment. I forgot everything about Oklama. I really did.
And that makes it all hit harder. The I am, all of it phrase becomes even more layered. In this context, it ties into Kendrick's recurring theme of shared experience, that his story is not just his own, but connected to a larger narrative. It's the opposite of celebrity individualism. It's about dissolving ego to better represent community pain, joy, confusion, and healing. Oklama says it plainly, then lets the music expand it. And while it may seem like Oklama's just a quiet footnote in Kendrick's timeline, the weight it carries is massive. This persona helped launch his most vulnerable, experimental work yet. He took on executive control, stepped back from savior expectations, and challenged the idea that rap personas have to be loud to be effective. Oklama's power is in his restraint.
Especially in hip-hop. The noisiest people cut through. And oftentimes, when we're disrupted, we don't like, it's uncomfortable when we're disrupted, especially in hip hop. When we're disrupted, we're like, who fucked up the piece? And we get mad. Who fucked up hip hop? And then you look back and you're like, oh, that was actually great for hip hop. That actually turned out to be a good thing.
So in a catalog full of bold characters, Good Kid, King Kunta, Kung Fu Kenny, Oklama stands apart by doing less. He's not a costume. He's a signature, a shift in posture, the person Kendrick becomes when it's time to turn inward and speak outward at the same time. He's not just producing tracks, he's shaping legacy. Oklama doesn't end with one album. It's the beginning of Kendrick operating as a bridge between old and new, personal and collective, pain and progress. That quiet note in 2021 wasn't a soft exit. It was the sound of someone stepping into a different kind of spotlight. Kung Fu Kenny. This version of Kendrick didn't sneak into the spotlight. He dropped in mid-air, fists up, backed by thumping bass and cinematic flair. The name first appeared in the DNA video, stamped in bold Chinese characters right under Kendrick's face like a title card. He wasn't hiding it, he was declaring it. Kung Fu Kenny had arrived, not with mystery, but with mastery. That same video featured Don Cheadle, who played a character named Kenny in Rush Hour 2. And Kendrick made sure the nod was intentional. He wasn't just borrowing the name, he was tying his identity to a legacy of sharp wit and action movie swagger. Then there was The Damn Legend of Kung Fu Kenny, a stylized short film rolled out on the Damn Tour. It was pure martial arts theater. Kendrick, in full black and white robes, set off on a mission to find the glow, a direct lift from The Last Dragon, where the glow meant reaching a kind of mystical self-mastery. In Kendrick's hands, that metaphor turned personal. The persona wasn't just a costume for tour dates. It was a marker of artistic evolution. Kung Fu Kenny represented the Kendrick who passed through the storm and come out razor sharp. And at Coachella, he doubled down. The visuals, the robes, the mood, it all pointed back to discipline and control. But unlike earlier alter egos that leaned into chaos or reflection, Kung Fu Kenny was confident, centered, and a bit theatrical. His clothes weren't flashy. They were deliberate. He wore them like a martial arts uniform, not a costume, letting the music do the loud talking while his
he had ankles out on these niggas. Full on ankle.
Appearance stayed calm and focused. There's a long history of martial arts imagery in hip-hop. The Wu-Tang Clan practically built an empire around it. Kendrick didn't ignore that. He leaned into it with respect.
Yeah, you gotta go away for in order to have this type of depth and visual, like conceptually, to think of this in the way that you want to present this to the earth would require a lot of time alone. There's no way he could be present in the way that Drake is. Not to say that like anything is wrong with the way that Drake's presence is. I still think that Drake's contributions for the state of the game in hip hop and just in general were largely positive more than they were negative. That's my opinion. But he represents a balance that is extremely needed in hip hop, and we're reminded of his importance to the culture every time he picks up a mic and voices his opinion. We may forget every now and then. We maybe forget, and we may be leaving him out of lists and certain. That's no longer happening. I still think he's etched in the stone his place in hip hop. But up until this point, I just think that he's fluctuated because of his absence or seemingly absence. And that maybe we didn't know. We couldn't pinpoint if he declined in wit, sharpness, skill set, the ability to still captivate our attention. And he not only captivates our attention, he pushes the boundaries every time he comes out. So GNX was the album we got, but I heard that wasn't even the album he was working on. So I feel like he's going to take it up a notch again soon.
Kung Fu Kenny tapped into the tradition of rappers using martial arts as a metaphor for lyrical skill, discipline, and survival. But he wasn't mimicking. He was adapting it to his own arc, moving from student to master without ever saying it outright. Online, fans started picking it apart. Some called Kung Fu Kenny Kendrick's bad side, a version that came with more bite. Others said it was just him, at his most polished, most powerful. One thing they agreed on, he wasn't experimenting anymore. He was applying everything he'd learned. Kung Fu Kenny wasn't wild or unhinged. He was precise, surgical. You could hear it in his flows, see it in his posture, and feel it in the staging. This persona wasn't about flash, it was about form. Kung Fu Kenny brought a level of performance discipline that matched the intensity of the damn era. The songs hit hard, but they also moved with rhythm and control.
I'm gonna answer my own question. Big Sean couldn't do a motherfucking thing with Dot. Hey, if you already left a comment, that's fine. That's okay. I'm just gonna say, boy, his ass would have had nothing for this boy. This is a madman. This is a mad scientist. You can't do nothing with these type of niggas, man. You just gotta leave these type of niggas alone, bro.
Like well-trained strikes. Even his interviews felt more calculated during that time. No chaos, no loose threads, just focus. It's no surprise the New Yorker highlighted how Kung Fu Kenny added a visual dimension to Kendrick's storytelling. He already had the words. This persona gave him the presence. At live shows, he didn't just rap, he presented. Every move felt choreographed, like part of a larger story. The alter ego gave him space to elevate his stagecraft without losing the personal grit that makes his music hit so hard. And while Kung Fu Kenny was loud in name, the execution was minimal and elegant. It wasn't a parody, it was an upgrade. Think of it as Kendrick leveling up, like a final form, not forever, but for that chapter. He took everything from the K-Dot era, filtered it through the pain and pressure of To Pimp a Butterfly, then emerged with a new stance. Not defensive, not aggressive, but poised. So Kung Fu Kenny wasn't just a character, he was a signal, a way for Kendrick to say, I've trained, I've struggled, and now I strike with purpose. There's a discipline to the persona that mirrors the music from that time. Each bar controlled, each performance deliberate, each image crafted with precision. You could see it in the short film, in the way Kendrick moved on stage, in how he let the persona speak without over-explaining it. And the name stuff, even now, years later.
This is well done. I'm liking this a lot.
Fans still reference Kung Fu Kenny whenever Kendrick drops something calculated or performs with that quiet intensity. He didn't need to yell it out every time. He introduced it once and let the music and visuals carry it forward. Kung Fu Kenny doesn't need constant reappearance to matter. The persona made its mark, not by dominating every moment, but by showing what happens when an artist doesn't just experiment, but fully embodies mastery. Kendrick didn't just wear the robes, he earned them. King Kunta. This isn't Kendrick slipping into some cartoonish role, it's him staking his claim with teeth bared. The name alone carries weight. It draws directly from Kunta Kinte, the rebellious enslaved man from Root who refused to accept the name forced on him.
A rapper with a ghostwriter. What the fuck happened?
Kendrick wasn't just borrowing the name for flair, he was invoking a legacy of resistance. Kunta lost his foot for trying to escape, and Kendrick flips that symbolism. They tried to cut the leg off King Kunta, and he still ran the game. This persona lives inside To Pimp a Butterfly, and it's loud, funky, unapologetically black. The track blasts out with that G-Funk skeleton, but the production is anything but dated. It breathes and thumps with live instrumentation, layered interpolations, and sonic callbacks.
I'm willing to say this album will never sound dated. I'm willing to make that bet. I think this is going to be a timeless album.
But the production is anything but dated. It breathes and thumps with live instrumentation, layered interpolations, and sonic callbacks. Kendrick channels Mouseberg's Get Naked, not by sampling it, but by recreating the groove.
Most of his albums will stand the test of time. I'll let this video play. I apologize if you're still watching. Most of his albums would stand the test of time because they're hard to execute for other people. So he gets respected because, like, a lot of artists are easy to be replicated and imitated. So that's why sounds and producers or producer orchestrated sound or producers are included, right? But I'm going to just focus on artists just to keep it centralized. I'm going to focus here. An artist sound that is easily duplicated and ran off with has to keep making more sounds and more waves, or they will phase out, because if it's something that's easily duplicated and easily watered down, it's going to lose its effectiveness over time. We have yet to hear any album like Good Kid, Mad City. I think the closest one in comparison is probably My Crazy Life by YG, but he took a completely different angle. It was close to home because they're both from Compton and they have unique experiences being from that city, so they get one another. Nothing else though. And Good Kid, Mad City is still in the Billboard charts 13 years later. Damn is still there. These albums are hard to replicate, and To Pimp a Butterfly is probably going to be the hardest in his catalog to replicate for any other artist. So we're going to appreciate it more because nobody's even dared to try it because they can't. It's going to be really hard. From a rapping concept, emotionality, like just even the survivor's guilt, how much a dollar costs, all these different things. These walls can talk, institutionalized, Wesley's theory. Like, these things are just like, you would have to, one, come from that era. You would have to be raised the way that Kendrick was raised and have the skill set and vision to do it. And also the reach to have different musicians come in and give you that type of live sound. And it's a lot. So that's gonna be one of his most revered albums going forward, in my opinion.
Compton's lost voices into his own spotlight. He builds bridges to Michael Jackson, James Brown, and Ahmad Lewis, all while keeping Terrace Martin and Soundwave locked into the foundation. It's West Coast tradition served with his own signature sauce. Lyrically, King Kunta comes out swinging. Kendrick takes aim at fake authenticity, mocking ghostwriters and industry posturing. He's not whispering accusations. He's shouting them from a rooftop. The bars are direct, cocky, and full of teeth. He doesn't just want to be seen as the best. He demands that the crown be placed on his head publicly, and that everyone acknowledged he earned it. He links his personal struggle to the wider story of Black resilience, framing his success as a victory over institutional sabotage. The visual side of King Kunta punches just as hard. The music video turns the Compton swap meet into a throne room. Kendrick's posted up on the roof, mic in hand, surrounded by a crowd, like a block party turned to coronation. There's no Hollywood gloss here. It's local, it's raw, it's joyful.
I'm the only next to Snoop that can press the button, and boy did he prove it. To say that in 2015 or whenever you recorded that, it was released in 2015. To say that probably 2 years prior in 2013 and released in 2015 and have that ring true 10 years later, even more true than it initially. It has more weight now than it did when he said it, because of what Not Like Us ended up doing for the coast and the celebrating was a song of unity. That's what they turned it into, and everybody's like, y'all having a West Coast unity, and you're dancing on another nigga's grave, and the record's about him being a pedophile. That's crazy. That's honestly insane, right? It's just the duality of the human experience. Is that we're all dancing on this coast, and this, like, all right, well, you ruined my reputation. It's insane to me.
And that location mattered. The swap meet was about to be torn down. Kendrick threw a goodbye party for it, knowing that honoring the place he came from was just as important as the flex. He didn't distance himself from his community. He lifted it up with him. And it wasn't just a set piece. Behind the scenes clips show Kendrick hanging out, laughing, dapping people up. The persona may be King Kunta, but the man is still Kendrick from Compton.
I had no idea that was the Compton swap meet grand closing. Like, in terms of I didn't know that. I learned something new. Let me rewind it up top so y'all can hear what he said.
The place he came from was just as important as the flex. He didn't distance himself from his community. He lifted it up with him. And it wasn't just a set piece. Behind the scenes clips show Kendrick hanging out, laughing, dapping people up. The persona may be King Kunta, but the man is still Kendrick from Compton. That connection is the root of the character's power. He's not inventing royalty out of thin air. He's crowning the everyday struggle as royalty. He's saying surviving the system and staying true is enough to make someone a king. Critics got it. Pitchfork praised the track's fire and funk, highlighting how Kendrick blends James Brown's bite with Prince's theatrical swagger. This isn't a subtle track. It stomps. It struts. It challenges.
Nigga, Prince outlived Mike Jack. Nigga, boom.
The confidence isn't empty. It's earned. The rhythm section doesn't just back Kendrick up, it announces him. Every drum hit feels like a footstep down a red carpet paved with broken barriers, and the reception matched the power. King Kunta sat high on best of lists in 2015. Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, Village Voice, even Australia's Triple J.
I didn't expect him to highlight King Kunta as much as he did in this video. This was a pleasant surprise.
Everyone took notice. It wasn't just a good track. It was anthemic. It helped To Pimp a Butterfly become what it is, one of the most celebrated albums of its era. And while the whole project is layered with different versions of Kendrick, King Kunta is the one shouting loudest in the middle of the street. But what really cements King Kunta's spot is that paradox. He's a king, built from a slave's rebellion. He's rich in power, but rooted in pain. Kendrick didn't clean that up for mass appeal. He leaned into it. That tension, that grit, is what makes the persona land. It's defiance, dressed as celebration. It's survival, scored to funk. So when Kendrick stepped into the King Kunta role, he wasn't creating a fantasy. He was embodying what it means to win without forgetting the losses.
Isn't it crazy that the place and the family that you're born into can be either a curse or a blessing or both at the same time? His parents from Chicago, they moved their family. They relocated from Chicago to Los Angeles to give their kids a better life, and they thought it would be safer. Well, they went from one hood to another, right? And in this environment, in the rise of gang activity, and the threats and the allure and the temptation that the streets presented to Kendrick's generation, and also trickling down to my generation and younger, that this could have been a death sentence, right? Like where he was from, Compton, California, a lot of his friends and family have succumbed to their early demise, and he talks about his survivor's guilt largely on his album and throughout his entire career. Who would have thought that these different type of influences and how his parents raised him, and stumbling upon, at the Compton Unified School District, I think with the Centennial High School, that his English teacher would be able to help him understand language in a way that he would use these tools to express himself and also empower and inspire others across the world. His teacher found out years later that he didn't even know that Kendrick was the star that he was. He said Kendrick came in with a stuttering problem, like he was shy, and then to see him evolve and grow, in the resilience that he showed is an act of God. Like that is, wow. You can't paint a better story.
The alter ego doesn't hide Kendrick. It sharpens him. He becomes the product of resistance, of pressure, of legacy. He takes what was meant to break him and wears it like armor. That's King Kunta. That's the message. And Kendrick made sure it echoed. Good kid. This version of Kendrick isn't mythic or flashy. He's real, confused, and trying to stay clean while everything around him spins out. The persona lives inside Good Kid, Mad City.
According to Glasses Malone, this nigga ain't no good kid. He's a mean kid. He was mean. Don't let that fool you. So according to Glasses Malone, that Dot was actually mean, but I know he has a good spirit. But he's like, don't let that good kid shit fool you.
And is tied directly to his younger self. Kendrick isn't performing greatness here. He's mapping his survival. The name Good Kid comes from the track where he says it outright, the space I was in. Knowing that you're doing wrong things, but at the same time, you're a good kid at heart. It's not just
pretty much what we're saying, pretty much.
It's the title. It's a contradiction he's forced to live through. The album title itself makes that tension permanent. The lowercase letters, intentional. Kendrick's not trying to present himself as a superhero. It's a kid in a mad city, period. The setting isn't neutral. It's violent, broken, and hungry. And the good kid, he's trying to make sense of it without becoming part of it. This version of Kendrick is part narrator, part participant.
See, Drake probably heard this and was like, you're a good kid like me. You never been into nothing. And he was like, I'm about to show you how different we are. Hence, they not like us. Like, I just don't understand that type of flip and that type of timing under the pressure that he was in to come out with something so poignant, so layered, detailed, scathing, and funny. Every time I hear Euphoria, not like Us on the radio, I'm like, this shit really happened.
The album's styled as a short film, non-linear, vivid, loaded with recurring moments and voicemails from his mom and dad. We're watching K-Dot slowly unravel, then get rebuilt as Kendrick. That whole identity arc, sliding between temptation and growth, is where the good kid persona lives. It's the sound of Kendrick putting down the bravado and picking up accountability. In the track, Good Kid, Kendrick just spills. The lyrics don't bark, they ache. He talks about being labeled, targeted, and pulled in by the kind of pressure that's not even dramatic anymore. It's daily. You hear him ask why it's like this, why the system's rigged, why cops treat him like he's already guilty. This isn't someone trying to rebel, it's someone trying not to break. But the persona doesn't live in just one track. Throughout the album, you can hear the good kid's voice cracking through, especially in the moments where he starts talking to himself. At one point, he brings in a conscience-like alter ego that warns him about drinking too much. It's not just a gimmick, it's his inner voice.
This nigga's having a conversation with himself in front of us. He's Professor X. This nigga's a mutant. Oh yeah, this nigga's a full-on mutant.
The part that's trying to keep the moral compass pointed somewhere north, even if it's shaking. His voice isn't dramatic or noble. It's scared, smart, and tired. Kendrick doesn't paint himself as innocent, but he's not trying to be villainous either. That's the point of the good kid identity. He's caught in a place where the right choices are hard to see, and even harder to make stick. His surroundings are designed to break people down, and he's not sure if he's an exception or a warning. The album cover makes that even more obvious. It's a childhood photo, and Kendrick's the only one whose eyes you can see. The adults around him, eyes blacked out. That wasn't some artsy design move. Kendrick said it himself. His eyes were left visible because they were still trying to make sense of everything. He was watching, absorbing, confused. The good kid is the one who's looking around, trying to understand without falling apart. In that context, the entire album becomes more than just a coming-of-age story. It's a psychological report.
He does come across as an observant while all this is happening. Like he's watching and he's like, I'm not necessarily in it. I'm in it by association and proximity, but I'm just detailing you the things that's around me. A street reporter, so to speak.
The good kid isn't just Kendrick's younger self. It's the version of him that still believes there's a way through all of it without losing your soul. It's not naive. It's desperate. What makes this persona hit harder is how personal it is. There's no mask, no gimmick. Kendrick isn't pretending. He's documenting the violence, The peer pressure, the pull of gang culture, none of it's glorified. It's mapped like a slow fall. And what saves him isn't some dramatic twist. It's insight, storytelling, and a willingness to listen to the parts of himself that still whisper you don't belong here. By the time you get through the album, the good kid hasn't been erased. He's just learned how to speak louder than the noise around him. Kendrick doesn't pretend he beat the city. He just made it through, dragging that inner voice with him, and that makes the persona timeless. It's not just Kendrick's past, it's the part of him that refuses to forget where he came from or pretend like it didn't leave marks. Good Kid is the root of all the other personas. Kung Fu Kenny, King Kunta, Mr. Morale, they all evolve out of the same place. This version doesn't have a costume or a catchphrase. He has confusion, survival, and the kind of moral clarity that only comes from living through something most people just hear about. K. Dot. This was Kendrick before the Pulitzer, before the Grammys, before the arenas. Back then, he wasn't sculpting mythologies. He was trying to get heard over the noise of South Central LA. K. Dot was his rap alias from the early 2000s through about 2009, and he wore it like armor. This was the version of Kendrick that lived on mixtapes, like C4, rhyming fast, flexing hard, and carving out space in a scene that didn't hand out passes. The name K. Dot itself wasn't just stylistic, it was strategic. It gave him a layer of distance. He could be sharper, brasher, more explosive without tying it all to his government name. This version of him was grinding through rap battles, studio sessions, and local shows with the kind of hunger that doesn't care about Polish. If Kendrick Lamar is the author, then K. Dot was the pen he first picked up to start writing.
He was Kendrick by then, but I mean, well, Kendrick Lamar EP was 09. Want to be heard. That's what I think of when I hear K. Dot.
By 2011, something shifted. He said it plainly in an interview. People thought of K. Dot as just a kid who can rap, and while he was good, he knew that wasn't enough. He didn't just want to be heard, he wanted to be known. That's when he dropped the alias and stepped out as Kendrick Lamar. It wasn't about abandoning K. Dot. It was about outgrowing him. K. Dot was fast, technical, flashy, but he was also guarded. You could hear it in the lyrics. He was saying a lot, but you didn't always know what he felt. That's the difference. Once he made the switch to Kendrick Lamar, the content cracked open. Suddenly, the rhymes weren't just clever, they were personal. The good kid emerged. The storytelling deepened. The persona sharpened. Still, K. Dot was never erased. He's part of the DNA. That raw, no-filter energy still shows up in later work. You can hear it echo in the bite of tracks, like Backseat Freestyle or DNA. It's the voice Kendrick slips into when he needs to remind people he didn't come out of nowhere. He fought his way into the room. The K. Dot era laid the foundation. This is the Kendrick that dropped bars over Lil Wayne beats on C4, showing off speed and flow, but still hunting for identity. It's the Kendrick that local
That's a big ass hat, and that's a big ass shirt that Dot got on.
heads started to take seriously because of sheer skill. His content wasn't as refined, and the themes weren't as layered, but you could hear something coming. Critics and fans often treat K. Dot like the prologue to the Kendrick Lamar saga. Not because he wasn't great, he was, but because he hadn't stepped fully into himself yet. The name was a mask, a shield, a tool. It gave him freedom, but it also boxed him in. That's why letting it go mattered. It wasn't just a name change, it was a declaration. K. Dot wasn't about legacy or message. He was about proving a point. That point got proven loudly. And once it did, Kendrick didn't need the mask anymore. The switch to his real name wasn't branding, it was growth. He'd built a reputation through mixtapes and freestyles, but the moment he dropped the K. Dot tag, he unlocked the space to talk about trauma, family, faith, survival, all the things that made his later album so cutting. But don't get it twisted. K. Dot didn't disappear. He evolved. You still catch glimpses of him when Kendrick taps into pure aggression, when he rides a beat like it owes him rent. K. Dot is the technical sword. Kendrick sharp. It's the reason he can drop 10 bars in one breath or flip cadences mid-sentence. That muscle memory came from the K. Dot days. So when fans look back at that era, it's not just nostalgia, it's context. K. Dot isn't some forgotten alias. He's the version of Kendrick who kicked down the first door, the one who proved he belonged. And even though Kendrick retired the name, he never stopped carrying the fire. Every persona that came after, Good Kid, King Kunta, Kung Fu Kenny, Mr. Morale, they're all built on what K. Dot started. The early Kendrick Lamar's story doesn't start in the studio. It starts in Section 8 housing with a front row seat to K.
I figured Section 80 was a play on Section 8, like all along. I really did. I told my homie, I was like, Section 80 is Section 8 housing, right? And he's like, I never thought about it like that.
Born on June 17th, 1987, he was raised by Paula Oliver and Kenneth Kenny Duckworth.
And it's probably a play on where he's from, like the year he he's an 80s baby, so Section 8 housing, Section 80.
Compton after they fled Chicago to escape the grip of gang life. Kendrick didn't grow up in some middle-class bubble. His childhood was boxed in by poverty, violence, and uncertainty. The family leaned on welfare, and at times, they didn't even have stable housing. His world was loud, unstable, and sharp-edged. Until age 7, Kendrick was an only child. That changed quickly, with siblings following behind. He was still a kid himself when the responsibility and pressure started stacking.
He don't look like nobody that wasn't with it. He looks like somebody that was catching fades at a moment's notice. He doesn't strike, this image doesn't strike me as somebody that was getting his ass whooped on. And maybe you can't win them all. You can't win all the fights. So like maybe he lost a couple, but like he don't look like no hoe. Like, and I think that's what Drake thought he was. He's like, you know who banged this set? Mine, YG, not you. And he couldn't be any further from the truth.
Long before he was rapping about the contradictions of fame and morality, he was witnessing a man get killed outside his home at age 5. That single event imprinted a sense of mortality that never left. He wasn't desensitized. He was awakened. Compton wasn't a backdrop. It was a force. Kendrick didn't join gangs, but he was surrounded by them. His friends, his neighbors, his environment. It was shaped by the colors and codes that ran the streets. Even when he wasn't throwing signs, he was absorbing the consequences of those who did. There wasn't much room to just be a kid. It was survival training, masked as childhood. At school, Kendrick wasn't loud. He wasn't trying to stand out, but he did. A first grade teacher once highlighted him for using the word audacity correctly. That's not just a
first grader using audacity is hilarious. I would have never forgotten that as a teacher. Oh, that's rich. That's good. That's good stuff.
Cute anecdote. It's a flash of the observer Kendrick would later become. He watched, he listened, he absorbed, he understood that words had weight. Then came 7th grade. A teacher named Mr. Inge introduced him to poetry, and that cracked something open. Kendrick found rhythm and release in writing. It wasn't therapy exactly, it was precision, a way to turn all the noise around him into something sharp and controlled. While his environment kept throwing chaos at him, writing gave him structure. And then, of course, there was music. His dad's record collection was loaded with Marvin Gaye and the Isley Brothers, but it was the West Coast energy that stuck. The local sound, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, was inescapable. When Kendrick was 9, he watched Tupac and Dre shoot the California Love video at the Compton swap meet. For most people, that would just be a fun memory. For Kendrick, it was ignition. He wasn't just watching 2 rap giants, he was watching a possible future. By 16, he was recording his first mixtape, Hub City Threat.
To be able to see California Love shot right in front of you, I don't think you have no other choice but to be great. To witness that and to have that in your memory and carry that on after Pac transitions and that's monumental.
Minor of the Year dropped under the name K. Dot. It wasn't some polished rollout. It was raw, self-made, and scrappy, but it turned heads. He followed up with more mixtapes like Training Day and C4, each one rougher, louder, and closer to something real.
I never heard Training Day, but I heard C4. And I didn't come on board until Kendrick Lamar EP and then Overly Dedicated is when I became a fan. But
it was raw, self-made, and scrappy, but it turned heads. He followed up with more mixtapes like Training Day and C4, each one rougher, louder, and closer to something real.
I actually think Joe Budden is on this tape, this K-Dot tape. I actually think he's on there.
These weren't projects meant to impress the mainstream. They were survival documents. Proof that he had something to say, and more importantly, a way to say it. Eventually, Top Dog Entertainment noticed. TDE wasn't a major label. It was a local engine, but it gave Kendrick a platform, a studio, and a future. It let him evolve. K-Dot wasn't a hobby. He was a declaration. Every verse was a new line in the blueprint. This foundation is why Kendrick's music hits differently. It doesn't reach for drama. It's already drenched in it. His storytelling doesn't feel borrowed. It's lived in. Growing up in Compton didn't just inform his lyrics. It became the scaffolding for every persona he built.
Scaffolding.
From good kid to Mr. Morale, the roots are here. In the dirt, in the heat, in the apartments, with broken locks and boarded windows. This isn't a background story. It's the prologue to a movement. And the more you understand about where Kendrick came from, the more you see why his music feels like testimony, not entertainment. He didn't step into hip-hop looking for fame. He stepped in because silence was no longer an option. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe.
Good job. Really good video. I'm going to leave the link to the original video in the description box down below. I'm definitely going to subscribe, and I'm definitely going to watch more from you going forward. Great video, my boy. And I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. If you want to stick around and watch me, you can look at my other videos on my channel. I'm sure I have something that you'll like, But if I don't, let me know in the comment box down below. See you living as always. I'll be safe. Shwee!